The 2024 preseason is in the books for the Tennessee Titans. We're going to talk through our takeaways from preseason week 3 and did anything from our 53-man roster projection change based on what we saw on Sunday? We're going to get into all that now. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. And Justin, today we have one last game of exhibition football to talk about here. As we record this, there is about, 1.5 preseason games left overall total for the 2024 preseason. Titans obviously are done. Let's go through some takeaways here. How's it going?
Doing well. You guys might notice I'm not in my regular setup. I'm not in my home office, so don't have all my equipment with me. Bear with me, but I do have my microphone, so as long as the audio quality is good, I don't think you guys will complain too much. It was a stunner. Titans scored 30 points. That's always fun. It's been a while. It's been 84 years.
It's been the longest amount of years. Yeah, good meme.
84 years since Titans scored 30 points. Yeah. Nice to get that monkey off their back, if you will, but no, it's a tease. I don't know if a lot changed for me, but one or two things I think did change. So we'll get into that when you're ready to tee that up.
Yeah, so let's go through some takeaways from this game first. I want to talk like big picture offense thoughts that I have after watching now. You know, we got to see a lot more extended look at the starters here on offense in this game. And then, yes, towards the end of the pod, like I mentioned, we're going to go through and say, all right, we did a 53-man roster projection. By the way, if you missed our 53-man roster projection and you're looking for it now because cutdown day is Tuesday, that's like 2 days away from the recording of this podcast, depends on when you're listening to this, go back in the feed and find it, 53-man roster projection. We went through every single position, talked through every player that we have making the team and every player that we have getting cut from the team. So gave a little bit of reason why the guys we have on the roster are there, why the guys we have off the roster didn't make it, who we expect to bring back to be brought back on the practice squad, and Melo and I did 2 separate 53-man roster projections, so check that out. I bet most podcasts are only doing one overall for the pod, right? Do you think every host, I don't know, I'm not really listening to other Titans podcasts, but so go check that out. We appreciate it. We know there are a million 53-man roster projections that you can go look at, so we appreciate it if you watch ours. But anyway, at the end of this pod, we are going to talk through and see if anything that we did last week changed a little bit after this game. Before we really get into things, let's remind everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, we really appreciate you. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and turn on alerts so you get a channel notification every time we drop a new video. And as always, please continue to be amazing, an amazing community of viewers and followers, and drop those comments. We love the comments. We love getting in there and having conversations with you guys. Melo and I are going to respond to just about every single comment we see. So we really appreciate that. All right, Justin, this game. Oh, one more thing. This episode is brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville and Bluegrass Beverages in Hendersonville. We'll talk more about Sinkers Beverages in a bit. Okay, Justin, this game, let's start with the first team offense because there's a few takeaways here I want to go through, but we're obviously going to start with the most important player on the team, Will Levis. Looked excellent in this game, 7 for 8 passing for 118 yards, led a touchdown drive, followed that up with a field goal drive. And these were a lot different than what we saw preseason week 1, because in preseason week 1, both those drives started in extreme plus territory after huge special teams returns, one on the kickoff, one on a punt. So we didn't really get to see the offense like run a full drive, but it was a lot different in this game. What did you see from Will Levis? Were you impressed, or were you like, who cares, it's against the Saints backups?
Little from column A, little from column B. Like, I was impressed. I thought it looked really good. Again, great command of the offense. That one throw to Calvin Ridley, his biggest throw of the day, was outstanding. By the way, I didn't see anyone note the protection. How about the pocket on that throw to allow that deep to develop the way that it did, and for him to hit him for what I think it was 33 yards, something along those 33 yards, I think it was. So outstanding pocket, gives it the time that he didn't have last year to hit that throw. So that was his best throw, best decision by far. I thought some of the other throws, there's like at least like 2 screens in there. So they kept some things a little vanilla. Certainly, but you can't ask for any better, really, than what it was. He looked comfortable in the offense, great command. Yes, it was a starting level offense against a backup defense, so you do got to take it with a grain of salt, unfortunately, but it is what it is. You couldn't ask for any better from Will Levis in the starting offense.
You want to know how good Will Levis has been this preseason? So he's taken the field for 4 drives. The Titans have scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal on those 4 drives. Will Levis, this preseason, has a completion percentage. This is going to blow your guys' mind. Completion percentage of 84.6%, which if you remember last year, the big knock on him was the completion percentage was like under, what was it, like 55, 59, somewhere in that. Under 60% last year. He led the league in average depth of target last year, ADOT, which is a measure of how far down the field in air yards his passes traveled per attempt, right? So not a ton of stuff close to the line of scrimmage, not a ton of short passes, over 10 yards per attempt on his air yards per attempt there. So that's a pretty high number. We've seen a complete opposite in this, especially in this game, but so far this preseason. I mean, like you said, a lot of screen action here. On the first drive, Will Levis went 4 for 4 for 65 yards. The only pass that traveled more than 2 yards down the field was the one to Tyler Boyd, which went exactly 22 yards down the field when he caught it and ran out of bounds as soon as he caught it. The other three passes,
a beautiful throw too.
Yes, it was a beautiful throw. But the other 3 passes went for gains of 8 yards, 22 yards, 13 yards. None of them, they were all screens though. They were all thrown right at the line of scrimmage, of about 1 or 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. So we're seeing explosive plays happen despite a very low average depth of target. And that is a big change from last year. The completion percentage though, I want to point out that 84.6 completion percentage. Of all quarterbacks who have thrown more than 6 attempts, this preseason, Will Levis leads all quarterbacks in completion percentage. And of all quarterbacks who have thrown more than 10 pass attempts, Will Levis leads them in average yards per pass attempt. So yards per attempt, he's at 11.8 yards per attempt. Again, despite a lot of these passes being much closer to the line of scrimmage. And he's leading the entire NFL in that preseason. Now, granted, this is preseason, so a lot of it has been against backups. It's exhibition football, but every quarterback that's playing is mostly playing against backups, is mostly playing exhibition football, and they're not averaging 11.8 yards per attempt or completing almost 85% of their passes. So, yes, it's a heavy grain of salt given the competition, but he can only play against the players that line up across from him. He can't be like, whoa, wait, New Orleans, I'm actually not going to run this series until you put your ones on the field. Like, obviously, you can't do that. You can only play the guys that line up across from you. Everyone has a chance to play against backups in preseason, pretty much. And he's doing what you want to see him do against these backups. He's absolutely dominating. Like you said, he's in full control. So, yes, a lot of starters haven't played very much this preseason. A lot of guys haven't even attempted, like, even the starters who did play, like Tua Tagovailoa and Jordan Love, and those guys, like, they're completing 100% of their passes this preseason. They all have touchdown passes, which Will Levis does not this preseason. But Tua was 5 for 5. Jordan Love was 3 for 3. So, like, those guys are also doing what you want to see your starting quarterbacks do. They haven't, if they had played, enough more games, more snaps, would they have gotten to over 10 pass attempts? Would they have completed 100% of their passes? We'll never know. But from what we can judge, Will Levis has been very, very, very good this preseason. And like I said, that's what you want to see. Like, if he was struggling, we'd say, well, he's struggling against backups. What's it going to look like against starters? The fact that he's excelling against backups at least gives you hope that he can continue to excel when the real lights come on in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. I think I'm approaching this with a bit more caution than you are. Don't want us to end up with egg on our face here. We got really good Bears secondary in week 1, so we'll see how it goes. But ideally, you can only control what you can control, so to speak. And he went out there and played the way you want him to play in the preseason. The goal, the challenge now is to carry that over into the regular season when it matters. Yeah,
absolutely. And the Bears defense has looked a lot better. Again, it's all caveated with preseason exhibition.
Really good
backups.
Secondary, though. So I'm expecting that secondary to be really tough in week 1.
So I'm not saying that all of this means Will Levis is going to be the best quarterback in football and lead the league in completion percentage and yards per attempt. I'm not saying that, but it's nice to see him succeeding right now. And yes, it will look a lot different in week 1, but I have a lot of hope for what Will Levis can be this year. The other thing I want to talk about here quickly before we move on to like the guys who this game actually mattered for is what the offense looked like overall, like philosophically what it looked like. And I did a video a few weeks ago. A lot of you guys probably saw that if you're tuned into this podcast, what Brian Callahan's offense, what to expect basically from Brian Callahan's offense. And a lot of the things I said in that video were based on like research I did into his time with Cincinnati and things he said in the media, but they weren't, obviously it wasn't based on actual football on the field because we hadn't seen anything yet, not even preseason yet when I made that video. So now that we've seen a little bit, I feel very good about the video I made because we are seeing, and I noted in this video, we're seeing a ton of play action. We're seeing a ton of pre-snap and or at the snap motion, which is like the cheat code that the Dolphins and Niners have been using the last few years. And we're seeing a ton of screens, which the Titans tried to run screens under Mike Vrabel, and they were rare. I feel like they were rarely successful with this. Like the screen game just never seemed to gel correctly with the way the blocking had to be set up and the timing and everything. But it looks, I mean, we saw it in this game today, a bunch of screens. The Nick Van Ette tight end screen went for 22 yards. Tony Pollard screen went for a first down. Tony Pollard, nice little play. It wasn't exactly a screen, but it was a similar concept to a screen on the fourth down that the Titans converted on their second drive. So we're seeing this offense that is a lot of easy access throws, a lot of short completions that go for big yards after catch, a lot of these throws that make the quarterback's life easier. Like he doesn't have to convert a 3rd and 10 with, a 5-man, 6-man rush against, no protection. Like it's a lot easier on the quarterback when you're not being put in these adverse situations every drive. So a lot more easy access throws, which we love to see. And the pre-snap at the snap motion stuff is really great for, just giving Will Levis an extra cue on what the defense is trying to do, getting those guys that are in motion a free release, come off the line of scrimmage, and getting the defense moving horizontally before the snap even happens, just to stretch the field more and create more confusion. All of this has been excellent, and I love to see it, and I'm really excited to see how much even more we can, like Brian Callahan's going to utilize this stuff when it's actual football, and he's not worried about putting things on tape for the Bears defense to plan for, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, you hit the nail on the head. It's allowing Will Levis access to those, those free release throws, if you will, right? Those almost manufactured that are going to create explosive plays. And frankly, they're layups for Will Levis. And that's what he needs more of this year, because the offense last year didn't give him enough of those. I'd almost say they didn't give him any of those, based on the wide receiver play, the offensive line play, and the design of the offense last season. So certainly it's an encouraging sign. It's going to help Will Levis do his job at a more efficient rate.
Absolutely. And then the other thing I want to touch on here quickly about the offense was the running back distribution in this game, because in the first preseason game against the Niners, when they actually played the starters for 2 drives, they didn't play any starters last week against Seattle. It was a very interchange running back situation. Like Tony Pollard would come in for a couple of plays, Tajay Spears would come in for a couple of plays, and they were going back and forth a lot. This week it was very different. It was Tony Pollard 10 snaps, which is how many snaps the opening drive was. Tajay Spears 0 snaps. Second drive, the first team offense comes out again. Tajay Spears is on the field, but then when they got the 4th and 1 play, it's Tony Pollard back on the field, and then they get closer to the end zone, Tajay Spears back on the field. It was very interesting to see that it looks, is it going to be 1A, 1B? Is it going to be 55-45 in favor of Tony Pollard, or could it be 65-35, 70-30? I mean, Tony Pollard played 10 out of 10 snaps with the first team offense on that drive.
I still go 60-40 for Pollard. I think 65 or 70 is getting a little too far ahead. But I do expect it to be about 60-40. And that second drive, mind you, it being Tajay Spears, probably had as much to do with Tony Pollard playing 10 snaps. Like, it's a long drive, right? It's 3rd preseason game. Give him a breather, right? And they bring him back out there for the 4th down play, as you said. But I'd be curious to know if that was the plan always. Pollard gets the first, Spears gets the second, or if it did have something to do with it was a really long first drive. Let's not run the guy into the ground in the 3rd preseason game.
Exactly. And then the last thing I'll say about all this is probably the biggest caveat to Will Levis's performance, is the offensive line looks really good, because they're playing against backups. Like, the offensive line gave Will Levis really nice pockets every time he dropped back to pass. Maybe the only one that they didn't was against the Niners on that one play where J.C. Latham got beat a little bit and Will Levis just made something happen anyway. But for the most part, it's like the offensive line has been really, really good, but I am not taking that nearly as positively as I am with Will Levis playing well, because it's like, if there were, I guess the upside is if they weren't playing well against backups, we could be really, really concerned. But they've been great so far through preseason games. The offensive line, by the way, the first team offensive line played the entire first half here, which I think that's partially probably to say okay, we've sort of just set this group in stone. It's been sort of interchangeable on the right side there at right guard and right tackle for most of training camp. Let's get that first team unit some real reps together, give them a chance to really build up chemistry together before they take the field for the first time as an official unit in week 1. So I just thought it was interesting to give Mason Rudolph a chance to play most of the second quarter with the starters in front of him, so he's not dealing with backups. Tajay Spears was still out there in the second quarter up until he tried to hurdle a man, landed on his neck, fell down on his shoulder. And from that moment on, Tajay Spears did not play again. It's like that play, right Brian Callahan was like, okay, Tajay, you're explosive. We like the hurdling and the missed tackling ability, but like, don't do that in preseason.
Maybe
Julius Chestnut,
here, yeah.
get your ass on the field, and Tajay, you can take a seat for the rest of the day. It was just funny to me that was his last snap. But the offensive line playing the whole first half, it gives you a better look at Mason Rudolph, and it gives them a better chance to create that chemistry that they're going to need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I thought Mason Rudolph was really sharp in this game when he came into it. He showed some great job maneuvering the pocket, buying himself time. I think he's a little bit more spruce, if you will, than I thought he was, right? Like he got away from pressure a couple times, was able to throw on the run, scramble drill a little bit. So I thought Mason Rudolph was really, really clean. And that's what he's been all preseason, to be honest. He's just a clean quarterback. I had a great conversation about this the other day with a source that I really trust. And it's just like, Mason Rudolph just takes what the defense gives him, right? Yeah. But he does that at such a high level that it makes him the high-level backup quarterback that they signed him to be.
I mean, I got a great Mason Rudolph stat for you that if you want it. Mason Rudolph on third downs this preseason is 9 for 10 for 117 yards. 10 third down attempts, 7 first down conversions, 9 completions in those 10 attempts.
There was that one today. Wasn't there the one today to Bryce Oliver? I think it was to Bryce. I was on like 3rd and 4, and it was a nice slant route. Really fit that into a pretty tight window. It was a good, clean route, but it was a great throw as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mason Rudolph converting 70% of third downs. You'll take that. Again, it's all against backups, but he is a backup. So he's a backup. That's his level. Like, of course, if he has to play any games, he won't be against backups. But so I thought that was great. Let's just do some maybe rapid fire takes on some of the players that are fighting for roster spots now, because I guess we can say Tyler Boyd made a nice 22-yard catch. Calvin Ridley made 2 nice catches. So we're seeing good stuff from the starters. DeAndre Hopkins expected to be back week 1, so should have that full trio of receivers out there week 1. But guys who are not expected to start when the season comes around, the number one guy that's sticking out to me right now on offense is David Martin Robinson. We've talked about him every week on our recap podcasts, but he just continues to show up and make plays. He made a number of plays in the passing game today, threw a stiff arm on a guy to pick up extra yards and pick up a first down, was out there lead blocking for Malik Willis on a read option that Malik kept, and just bulldozed the defender, like ran through his chest and then knocked him to the ground. So he's out there getting it done as a blocker, as a pass catcher. That's the name of the game if you're a tight end. I got people in my mentions on Twitter when I tweet these clips out saying he's a tight end 1 on this team. And I'm like, all right, slow your roll. He has not played a snap against a starter yet this entire preseason. He's not going to be tight end 1 over Chig and Josh Wiley just yet. I am a little regretful of keeping Nick Van Ette off my 53-man roster projection last week, because he's out there on the first
novice. I didn't make that mistake.
He's the target of the first 2 pass plays in this game, where everything is schemed up exactly what they want to like work on as they take the field. So that was probably pretty stupid. But I do think if Brian Callahan is serious about keeping the 53 best players regardless of position, which is sort of what he intimated in his last press conference, David Martin Robinson's got to make this team as a 4th tight end. He just has to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on that train for the whole time with you for a while now, and nothing certainly changed on Sunday. He was really good in this game, both as a pass catcher and as a blocker. He's a much better blocker than I thought he was, right? Like that was like the knock on him coming out of Temple, is like undersized, athletic pass catcher, not great in the blocking game.
Right.
He's looked pretty all right throughout the preseason as a blocker. And certainly, that route where he's the lead blocker, he's got a chance to build up some steam. I think that was a DB he was going up against. So, advantage heavily tipped in his favor, but he did the job, right? He did exactly what he's supposed to do, is put that guy on the ground and create a nice lane for his quarterback. So I'm big on this kid. I'm fully expecting him to be on the 53 when they announce it. Really, really impressive throughout the preseason for him, and he put a statement on that during Sunday's game.
Absolutely. Anyone else you want to take one that stood out to you on the? Let's stick to the offense here. If you have anyone else, if not, we can move on.
I don't think I have anyone else on offense, to be honest with you. I guess let's talk a little Malik Willis. I don't know if you were saving that for later, but
I wasn't.
I mean, controlled what he could control, right? Like he looked pretty good in this game, like massive difference. And at the end, was it the Seattle game where they put in Mason Rudolph at the end to lead the comeback?
Right.
Not the case today. They kept Malik Willis in. They gave him that chance, and he led 2 great scoring drives there near the end, right? I mean, that 34-yard touchdown to Bryce Oliver, that was beautiful. I thought the ball placement on that was pretty damn impressive. Dropped it right in the bucket there. And I tweeted out, by the way, him and Bryce Oliver are better than John Stockton and Karl Malone. Like the chemistry between these two guys, really impressive. And then he hits him again for the game winner. It was third down, I think it was.
Fourth and one.
Sorry, fourth. Yeah, fourth. That's right. That was fourth down where he hits him another slant by Bryce Oliver. He runs a good slant round, a couple of them in this game. Malik did all he could do. And look, I hate to let the third preseason game convince me. You asked if anything changed for me. I had kept 6 linebackers on my initial 53, okay? I already had 4 running backs. I already had 4 tight ends. If one of these linebackers goes to IR, and I'm starting to think that's a more realistic possibility, right? You've got, Cedric Gray, who seems to still be nursing a little something from what we gather. And then the bigger concern, Chance Campbell left this game with a knee injury, was apparently frustrated, and then Brian Callahan in the postgame said he was going to be getting an MRI. That's probably something you'd be doing now anyway, especially as you're cutting down the roster. We got to know what his status is now. But, not a great sign that he's getting that MRI. So if someone goes on IR, whether that's Gray or Campbell, and I've got an extra spot on my 53, yes, I could keep a 10th offensive lineman because I only had 9, or I could keep a 6th corner because I've only got 5, or a 5th edge rusher because I've only got 4. I'm pretty tempted to give that spot to Malik Willis, to be honest with you now. I don't know that it will happen. I think I'm still 50-50 on that, but I'm starting to think I've got an extra spot to work with that I didn't think I had originally because I had the 6 backers. And, again, not trying to change my mind too much here based on the third preseason game, but you'd like to think if they do end up with an extra spot, Malik's probably at least in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, I still wonder if any other team would see him as worth claiming. He's like a developmental guy. You got to put the time in with him. He doesn't know your system. He knows the Titans system. So he's more valuable to the Titans than he is to any other team as a reserve third quarterback. All these other teams have their own third quarterback that they're trying to develop. So would they really think that Malik Willis is better than the guys that have been working in their system the whole time? That's the only reason I struggled to get on board. I could see it. I could totally see them not wanting to risk losing him if they really think he has developmental upside. Remember, Mason Rudolph's on a 1-year contract. So if you don't bring Mason Rudolph back next year, you will be in the market for a backup quarterback next year. If you think Malik Willis can be that guy for you, you've been working with him in your system for a full season, by the end of 2024, maybe they will not want to risk it. Maybe they will keep him. Also, shout out to Bryce Oliver. You gave Malik Willis those shout outs. I mean, Malik Willis led 2 go-ahead touchdown drives to take the lead first with 6 minutes left and then to take the lead again with 50 seconds left. And those were crucial. Like you said, the 34-yard touchdown pass was incredible. But as you also said, both of those passes went to Bryce Oliver, who the connection with Malik Willis has been electric all training camp based on all reports there. We haven't seen it too much in the preseason. There was the really nice throw from the San Francisco game that didn't count because of an illegal formation penalty. But for the most part, that connection, we've heard about it a lot. And we got to see it on full display here in 2 huge moments. So Bryce Oliver, shout out to you. I don't know if you're going to make the roster. I mean, you're definitely not going to make the roster, but he's near the top of my list for guys I would like the Titans to bring back onto the practice squad.
I think Mike tweeted it. Pretty ironic that this is one of the years where they've got such a good preseason darling receiver, and they probably don't have enough room on the 53 for him. But he's been really good, man, through no fault of his own. If he doesn't make it, I think that's the only thing I can say. Through no fault of his own, and would certainly be really high up on the practice squad list if he does end up getting released.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so anything else on offense? I guess there's a player that plays offense that I do want to shout out, and that's Thomas Odukoya. I don't think he's going to make the team because there are 3 tight ends that, as dumb as I was for leaving Nick Van Nett off my 53-man projection last week, those 3 tight ends are making it. Chig, Josh Wiley, Nick Van Nett. David Martin Robinson is above Thomas Odukoya in terms of if they keep a 4th tight end, it's not Odukoya. He probably will get back on this roster through the International Pathway Program player exemption, so he gets to stay on the roster without taking up a roster spot.
Practice squad
right? Exemption. Sorry, he gets to stay on the practice squad without taking up one of the 15 practice squad spots. Thank you. But how about Thomas Odukoya running down Samson Nakua, the younger brother of Puka Nakua, on Braden Narvison, attempts a 58-yard field goal, makes it, but wait, Dennis Allen called timeout, so the kick doesn't count. We knew, he knew as he was kicking it that it wasn't going to count. It was a very early timeout. Still kicked it, booted it through the uprights from 58 yards. Holy shit, he's made a 59-yarder, and now he makes a 58-yarder. Granted, it didn't count. goes out to kick it again and is way short. This is the second time, not nearly as successful on the second try. Samson Nacua, again, the younger brother of Puka Nacua, starts returning the missed field goal, from the end zone. 106 yards, he takes it all the way to the 2-yard line, and who is it that chases him all the way down, ran all the way down the field towards the kick as it was being missed, and then ran all the way back down the field chasing Nacua, forces him out at the 2-yard line. Thomas Odukoya doesn't give up on the play. Titans don't win this game if he doesn't make that effort play, because that ended the half. Saints go into the locker room at halftime having just come off a touchdown return. Is a lot different ball game than, obviously, the Titans only win by 3 points. So pretty great play by Thomas Odukoya. Pretty awesome, outstanding effort play. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to help him make the team, but still wanted to shout him out for that.
Incredible effort play. The hustle was just unbelievable on that. I see how pumped NPF was on it too. I mean, you get pumped up when your teammates show that kind of effort.
NPF was making the best effort he could to chase down Nacua as well.
325, 30 pound, whatever he is, 330-pound guy. Very impressive on NPF's as well.
All right, let's move to the defense here. Some quick thoughts on the starting defense before we talk about roster bubble guys. T'Vondre Sweat, 3 impact plays on the Saints' first drive, stuffs the very first play of the game, first down run, stuffs another run a couple plays later after Rashad Weaver gave up a horrible completion trying to drop into coverage on 3rd and long, and tried to turn around, got shaken out of his shoes. It looked like a
coverage player.
Looked like the cargo freight ships that got stuck in the Suez Canal. You know what I'm talking about? The ones that couldn't make the turn all the way around. That's what he looked like trying to turn around there. And they give up the conversion there. But then a couple plays later, it's T'Vondre Sweat barreling through the offensive line into the backfield and forcing a quick bad throw from Jake Haener. Results in a 3-and-out for the Saints. Now, this was against the Saints backups, but T'Vondre Sweat absolutely dominated the Saints backups, and you hope he can carry some of that momentum into a real game against starters.
Yeah, I've got some rapid fire here on defense for you, because I don't know that I've got long-winded thoughts, but from rookie-wise, I thought T'Vondre Sweat and Jalen Harrell looked really good. I think Jalen Harrell made a few nice plays, and I think he's established as edge 3. By the way, he's ahead of Rashad Weaver for me. Weaver was one of the worst players in this game. Yep. And I'd be wondering if he's even guaranteed a spot. He probably is due to the lack of depth behind him. But, Caleb Murphy hit a nice pressure. So, those guys tried to do what they can to help himself. Shane Ray kind of forced a fumble there in the second half. So those guys did what they could. And I wouldn't be sad if one of them surprisingly made it over Weaver. I think Harrell's edge 3, really good game today. Great from Sweat. I thought Kenneth Murray looked really good as well when the starting defense first unit was out there. Other than that, to be honest, I don't know that I had a ton of thoughts. I mean, Eric Garrar, I think, helped himself with that late punt return and then a pass breakup right before it to get the ball back, and then he goes back and returns the punt. Interesting to see that, because I think he's in that mix for that CB5 or 6 spot, depending how many they keep.
And by the way, the contrast there, Eric Garrar, as you said, diving pass breakup on 3rd down. Yeah. The series before that for the Saints, it was Anthony Kendall who had a busted coverage against A.T. Perry, gave up the 44-yard.
Keaton Ellis, I think.
Yeah, Keaton Ellis was the safety who wasn't there, and Anthony Kendall was the corner who got burned by A.T. Perry for a 44-yard catch that put the Saints at the 2-yard line, and that's how they had their go-ahead touchdown there late in the game. So if you're comparing, because I had Anthony Kendall on my roster for special teams purposes, but if you actually want to have a cornerback 6 that if you had to put in a game at some point you feel okay about, I'm way higher on Eric Garrar as a defender than I am on Anthony Kendall. Yeah. And if Eric Garrar can prove that he can be a special teams contributor too, jha'quan Jackson gets hurt or can't return a punt or whatever, and he can go out there and field punts and return them 21 yards to set up your final drive under 2 minutes left from the 25-yard line, that's value. So I do think Eric Garrar helped himself a lot in this game. Also, we should shout out James Williams again, just flying around all over the place, making plays. He was in the backfield, laying the nastiest hit on Spencer Rattler. He read a screen really well on a 3rd down in the red zone that he came up and made the stop on and forced a field goal. So all around great game by James Williams too. I think you're right though. I don't really have a ton of other shout outs to give on defense. Abdullah Anderson was in the backfield making plays again. That's 2 weeks in a row for him. Definitely some competition at the back end of the defensive line. Didn't see anything really from Isaiah Aiton today, so maybe there's a chance, they keep the guy who has NFL experience in Abdullah Anderson over the undrafted free agent rookie, who they could probably stash on the practice squad without really much risk. But yeah, I think we can get into anything that changed for us on our 53-man roster projection. We sort of teased a couple of them. For me, it's will Malik Willis be kept as the QB3? It's does Rashad Weaver even make this team? And it's, for me, we just covered this one, but I might swap out Eric Garror for Anthony Kendall, or maybe I said that backwards, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot either, right? I think I talked about the Malik if we get an extra spot there. Maybe I don't know that it's going to be 6 backers anymore. I'm wondering what's happening there with Gray and Campbell's injury statuses, if you will. I think corner it's flexible. It's Eric, it's EG, it's Anthony Kendall for special teams coverage. That is, EG's the best. EG's their second best punt returner.
Yeah,
I think no doubt about it, behind Jha'quan Jackson. Will that matter? Maybe, maybe not, because they probably like what they have in Jha'quan Jackson at that spot. But yeah, not a whole lot of changes for me. I'm ready to get to this. And by the way, you said cut down days Tuesday. It is. Wouldn't shock me if Titans start this process Monday, or even complete the process Monday, if you will, because if you've noticed the trend around the league, a lot of teams are doing it a day after their final preseason game. Titans will be home in Nashville tomorrow. They could easily have those guys come through the office and inform them if they want to, or at least a couple of them. So we'll see how that plays out over these next 2 days. But that process could start earlier than most think.
Yeah, totally. One more note here on this game. Elijah Molden had a really nice pass breakup and predictably on that play went down with an injury. He's now being evaluated for a concussion. So
that could play a role too.
You're already seeing the impacts of like why we were stressing so hard for months that the Titans needed to add safeties. They go sign obviously Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs and push Molden down the depth chart. But man, if you were relying on Molden to be a starter and he's already dealing with an injury here, granted it's a concussion, so hopefully he takes a week or two to get his mental right and can get back on the field. You hope this isn't one of those lingering concussions, and at least it's not like a soft tissue injury or a joint or a bone or something like that. So that's, I guess, a positive, although I'm never going to sit here and say it's positive for someone to get a concussion with what we know about brain trauma and what these hits do to people later in their lives. So
especially this close, to having the 53. Maybe he gets shifted to IR as a guy that can come out. Who knows, right? There's going to be a lot of moving pieces here over these next couple days.
Right. So, all right, that'll do it. We will be back this week to react to the final 53-man roster. I'm going to be dropping a video on L'Jarius Sneed on this channel soon, and then we will start previewing an actual football game against the Bears. Yeah.
And maybe a practice squad episode. I think we usually do that every year, and you guys seem to like that. I've always got lots of info on that, so we'll probably try to get one of those in as well.
Yeah, why not? But anyway, thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks even more if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like. Turn on alerts so you get a notification every time we drop a new video. Thanks also to Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, serving the community since 1985. Their knowledgeable staff is proud to help you with large parties, themed events, or finding something unique for a special occasion. From birthday parties to milestone celebrations to everyday moments, Sinkers can help with the right drink for every occasion. And Sinkers Beverages is on Uber Eats, the most convenient way to have any of the booze you need delivered straight to your front door. If you head to the sinkersbeverages.com website or check the link in this podcast description, you can join the In Crowd. In Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. All right, that'll do it. As we said, we'll be back to react to the final 53-man roster, the practice squad, L'Jarius Sneed video, why he's a perfect fit for Denard Wilson's defense, and then yes, we will preview Titans at Bears week 1 soon. So until later this week, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.